Day 45 of my 100-day self-connection experiment where I meditate every day for 2 hours and then shoot a daily video. Oh man, today I just want to share like a authentic awakening, just kind of one of those videos where I empty out about what I'm going through internally and just try to bear it all for you guys because, like I always say, this channel, my blog, basically my life since my Kundalini awakened 2.5 years ago. Well, about once I got on the healing journey and felt like well enough to start sharing, I just wanted to make my experiences a human laboratory for those of you who started going through it or who are going through it now, who are just awakening, And I feel like the best way to do that is to share it all, the light and the dark of this, especially when we get more matured into the process. I'm about 2.5 years into it now, and these meditations going into the silence, going deeply inward for 2 hours plus, a lot of days it's like 4 hours, have just kind of like accelerated the integration process. And one of the things that I'm noticing now is I can feel in the moment, instantaneously, a lack-based movement, a neediness, a needy pattern. And it feels so wretched now. The littlest thing, the littlest thing now. It's not even, like my needy and codependent patterns used to they were like who I was. It just would govern every movement. The fear of not getting others' approval, acceptance, and love was acting out of those patterns was like who I was. That was me. I was that pattern. And now through doing the inner work, through healing, through going through this intense Kundalini awakening process that really surfaces all of your unconsciousness, all of your inner pain and your trauma, and it forces you to see it, and it forces you to accept it, and it forces you to love yourself through it. Gosh, I am so much more of an independent person. I have so much more wholeness and love from within. But when you go through this process for long enough and you start maturing into it in a pretty deep way, man, anything that has to do with lack or looking for others' approval or feeling like you need somebody. Because here's the thing, if we're feeling like if you're obsessively missing somebody, this used to be who I was. I used to always be obsessively missing somebody. It was so bizarre. I would always be heartbroken and be missing my ex. Or when I even had a girlfriend, I would be missing somebody else. It was that was just who I was. I was always thinking someone else was my key to my inner well-being. And whenever we're obsessively missing somebody, it's just a sign that there's a part of us that we haven't accepted yet. That feeling of needing somebody else, of needing that validation, of needing the love or the attraction from the opposite sex or from a certain person, all that is a part of us that we haven't accepted yet. That's what that feeling is. And rather than accept it, we try to go just avoid feeling it by getting someone else to accept us, right? Getting someone else to love us, to be attracted to us, to want to be with us, whatever. And if what I'm feeling now, if I avoid that movement of say I want someone to like me, or whatever, or say I just feel that feeling oh, I need this person's validation. And if I try to go for that rather than feel that part of me that wants to be accepted, that just is so painful these days. And I just want to share with you guys, that's where your process is heading. It's heading in the direction of anytime you're not willing to feel a part of you that wants your love, that wants your acceptance, and anytime you try to externalize those feelings, that's the most painful teaching of this whole process, I think, as you start maturing, is this process really becomes about truly feeling that you are complete, knowing that you're complete, and knowing that you are whole. And man, it's a hard road. It's a hard road to go from being a super codependent person to where I'm at now in no time. 2.5 years. It's almost unfathomable to think about how I perceived myself and others. I mean, the fear I had of other people, because I was when we're so dependent on others for acceptance and approval and love, when other people's perceptions of us literally defines our self-worth, when we derive our self-worth based on how other people, if they like us or not, that creates so much fear of other people, because you've given all your power to the other. You've put yourself in a prison cell and you've given your key to the other people. And now that I feel so much more connected to myself, now that I approve of me, and now that I'm just so much less needy of others' approval, I'm not afraid of people anymore, because they can't disapprove of me. Like, their story of me doesn't really even exist to me anymore, because when we are needy and codependent of others' approval, their disapproval of us, their story of us, of who we are and what we perceive, they perceive of us, that only existed in us. Do you see what I mean? That was never actually a real thing. That only existed in our story going on in our mind. But once we start accepting ourselves and loving ourselves and approving of ourselves, that story of what other people are thinking of us, it just goes away. And it's not even there. It's not even a thing. Like, what does she think? Do they approve? It doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter is the thing. And this journey just becomes about listening to what the silence asks of you. And one of the things that gets in the way of this journey quite often is that spiritual ego. For me, my cycle is this. Here's how it works. I will activate new grids, or I'll have a new place of expanded consciousness, and I'll feel really connected. The Kundalini is very integrated, and then my spiritual ego will say, what can I get from this? What can I get from this new awareness, right? And then that movement pulls you back into density. And as you get pulled back into density, because the spiritual ego has arisen, it gives you a chance to surrender that spiritual ego another layer. It gives you a chance to let the personal will fall away, and it gives you an opportunity to allow the Kundalini to live through you as you a little bit more deeply. And as that happens, you start expanding. You activate new grids. You reach this newer state of consciousness. You have more understanding about yourself and the universe, which you start realizing you are the universe. The universe doesn't even exist out here. It's just all right here. This is literally everything. And then the spiritual ego says, ooh, what can I get with this level of consciousness? And it pulls you back down into density again. Now, here's the key that I'm unlocking, I'm kind of tapping into. The key to not being pulled so easily and to staying in balance and creating with the light, we'll say, just as a metaphor, is to really allow that spiritual ego, that personal will, to dissolve through the heart. And I think if you want to move fast, when I've moved the fastest, it's like this. There's this book called Levels of Energy. It's pretty cool. It's helpful at a certain point. But anyway, so let's just, as a metaphor, I'm not saying anything's better or worse, but there's level 200 rapids we can move through of energy. We'll just say that that's like a neutrality, which is pretty high level. Then there's level 300, we'll say is like willingness. Then there's level 400, we'll say that's like reason. Then there's level 500, we'll say that that's like joy or whatever. And then 600 we'll say is peace, 700 we'll say is love. And each of these rapids, 200 neutrality moves pretty fast, but pretty just relaxing. 300 willingness moves a little faster. 400 reason, you're moving even faster. And then once you get up to 500, like peace, joy, and love, you're really moving, right? You're really moving. And I'm sure you guys can feel sometimes when you're just really moving fast. But the thing about moving really fast is it's easier to crash. It's easier to just like fall off, and then you kind of like fall off and you get disoriented and that hurt, what happened? Because the faster you go, the faster things are moving at you. And so the faster you have to make decisions. And if you make it, and then the easier it is to kind of mess up, because the more coming at you, the easier it is to fall off out of alignment. The easier it is for the spiritual ego to come up and be like, oh, that's a really cool thing coming at us. Let's do this with, and then boom, you're falling off. If you're not accepting these fast moving energies through the heart, you're going to fall. So then you fall off, and then you kind of just start, okay, then you start speeding up again and up again and up again. That's another way to explain this process. And how like when you're moving really fast, when you're in that vibration of peace or love and joy, and that spiritual ego comes up, that's when you always fall off. And so what I'm saying is, if we want to keep moving fast, we got to stay in the heart. We got to stay in the heart. And that's something I always get away from. When I start moving really fast, I always get into the head, because the mind is like, we need to figure out how to organize all this. We need to logically house this, and then you've just fallen because you're not in the flow anymore. You're not just letting things happen. You're not letting life spontaneously. Because how did you get to start moving fast in the first place? You surrendered. You let go. You fell in love with being, with beingness. You let go of your egoic desires. You surrendered to God. You surrendered to the universe. You said, Kundalini, live through me as me. That's how we got going fast in the first place. You listened to the silence. You allowed the silence to move you. But then sometimes when we get going really fast, we're in those fast rapids, we let go of all of that and we think, oh shit, I'm moving so fast. Now I need the mind. And then we move slow. And that's my movement, guys. It's just fun to share with you guys my movement. It's fun to empty out. It's fun to share with you like things I know you're going through, because I'm so flawed, and therefore I know you're so flawed. We're all so flawed, and that's okay. And that's okay. And we're gonna have these patterns come up, and all these patterns really are is just us wanting to accept us, And I think the more we can open our heart, the more we're going to accept our flawed nature. And the more we accept our flawed nature, the quicker we can move. The faster, the higher rapids we can be in for longer. It's when we get into that streak of perfectionism, of thinking that I fucked up, so now I'm not worthy, That's that spiritual ego that talks, that thinks it needs to be perfect and in super alignment all the time. And that's just not reality right now for where I'm at on the journey. And right now, reality is just asking me to just speak from my heart, live from my heart, and that's where I'm at. So I hope that this little spiritual rambling diary was something you guys can relate to. And the meditations are really helping. They're really helping me see all this, see all the traps I create for myself. And this is just, guys, it's all about really coming into the heart, transcending the mind by coming into the heart. That's not to say the mind is an enemy. The mind is very innocent. It's just a machine, It's just been programmed so intensely. It's not its fault. We just gotta love it. We gotta accept ourselves. Just accept ourselves. I know it's hard. I know it's hard, especially right now in quarantine. The body has its movement. It has its And it can be hard to sit with all that pain that comes up and to integrate it all. And it just seems a lot of times so much easier for us humans to lose ourselves out here rather than to sit with what's in here. And that's okay. And as you deepen on this path, it's like you don't even have to do anything out here. You just have to start feeling the intention to do it, and then you feel the pain. It's like you just can almost feel the pain before you even, you can feel the pain before you even act out the pattern. You can feel the pain when the pattern surfaces, and you even, just for a moment, push it away. Push it away mean even think about acting it out, and then you can just feel something arise, like, oh, okay, let's just sit with this. Let's just allow this. Let's not resist this. And that's what the Kundalini teaches you, is non-resistance, is acceptance, is opening to your true nature, which is wholeness, which is completeness, which is love. We are love. That's what we are. The Kundalini, if we let the Kundalini live through us as us, ultimately where it guides us to is being love. Being love. Okay. I'm going to go try to be love today. You guys go try to be love too. See you on day 46. Namaste.